Hello my friends and welcome. Russia really struggles with their oil refinery facilities. Just for the last week, Ukraine eliminated around 15% of all of the Russian oil refinery capabilities. Just for today, 3 of the refinery facilities were targeted in Ruzzian region and Novokubitschevsk and Samara region. The Russian air defense is unable to cope with the new Ukrainian long-range drones, which apparently has the range of around 1,500 kilometers. It's a record-breaking number. Those drones were just occasionally used for their maximum range, but mostly they covered the distance from 700 to 900 kilometers. Totally, Russia has around 30 of the refinery facilities. Ukraine targeted already 14 of those. It doesn't mean that all of those facilities stopped their operation, no, but some of them did. And the capabilities of the damaged refinery facilities are much lower. I personally think that it is a strategic breakthrough for Ukraine. Before, Ukraine targeted the oil reservoirs, but now concentrated on refinery facilities because reservoirs do not play a great role. Let me read out what some of the Russian experts say about this stuff. Since the beginning of 2024, Ukraine gradually increased their attacks on the Russian oil facilities, including the oil storages, but those are quite cheap and Russia has many of those. Yes, if the big oil tank is being targeted by the drone, we lose it, but the tank itself is cheap as well as our oil, they say. But in case of Ukrainian attacks on the oil refinery facilities, the situation for us is very serious. That's what they say. There is usually unique and complicated equipment installed on those refineries to produce benzene or diesel. The vast part of that equipment is made in the Western countries. So if we lose it, we are not able to compensate it because of the Western sanctions. Well, at least they cannot do it easily. They confirmed that Russia had to stop the export of gasoline abroad, and there will be the fuel crisis in Russia if Ukrainian attacks continue. By targeting those facilities, Ukraine has two aims. First, to get less fuel to the Russian army, and the second one, to raise the price of the Russian fuel for Russians. Not just for ordering, but for the trucks, for trains, for everything, for airplanes as well. It will make Russian economy to suffer. Yes, today we don't see it because those facilities were attacked just recently. Plus, the Russian army has some of the reserves of benzene and diesel. So the idea for Ukraine is to continue those attacks, not to let Russia to repair those facilities if they somehow get the Western-made parts for them. This was the strategy of allies towards the Nazi Germany in the Second World War, to target their oil storages or refinery facilities. Yes, sometimes Russia may also target those refinery facilities in Ukraine, but Ukraine exports oil or benzene or diesel from our Western neighbors. I was in Ukraine, then Russia bombarded the biggest refinery facility in Kremenchuk. It created a huge fuel crisis in Ukraine. Gasoline was really hard to get. But after a couple of months, Ukraine got the fuel from Romania at first, and you know what surprises me? From Hungary. After that, the fuel crisis was solved. But Russia doesn't have that back up. You may say that Russia is big, they have many of the oil refineries. Yes, indeed, but most of them are located in the European part of Russian Federation. They also have some far away in Siberia, but they are used just for those regions. Russia simply doesn't have enough infrastructure to send that oil to Moscow region, for example. Obviously, those few facilities that are unreachable by Ukrainian drones would not be able to cope with the demand inside the Russian Federation, not even speaking about the war against the other country, where Russia has to refuel lots of the vehicles. Plus the jet fuel, kerosene. Just few refineries are able to produce that. It should be, and it is, the main aim of the Ukrainian army to target those. Pardon, but in this case it's not the Ukrainian military, but rather the military intelligence of Ukraine plus SBU security services. It is their job to target all of those refineries. Potentially those attacks might do lots of the harm to the Russian Federation, but still I think that Russia will not stop. They will insist on some sort of the ceasefire for a long time to renew their army and to repair those oil facilities, and they'll strike again. For now I see that it's their main strategy. By the way, Ukraine does it all alone using their own equipment, Ukrainian-made long-range drones. No Western-made weaponry is used outside the Ukrainian territory. By the way, Crimea is Ukraine. What's about the Russian response, let's say, about their attacks on Ukrainian territory? Mostly they target civilian facilities, residential buildings, and so on. You saw it in the news probably for the last week. No any sort of the military infrastructure was targeted. Also, our allies helped Ukraine a lot with the air defense systems, and Ukraine probably has the most sophisticated air defense in the world around the major cities, like for example in Kiev. As statistics shows, Ukraine shuts down 95% of all of the Russian drones and missiles which they send to attack Ukraine. But there is a big problem with missiles for those systems. Ukraine is simply running out of missiles. We have the warning article about it from the Telegraph. They say that Ukraine will mostly run out of the air defense missiles in a few weeks. They say that Ukraine now shuts down 4 out of the 5 Russian missiles, but the next month just 1 out of 5 Russian missiles could be shut down by Ukrainian army. Ukraine would have to choose what kind of the missiles to shut down. This situation is not normal. I hope you agree with me. This winter our allies reduced the supplements for Ukraine by around 50% compared to what it was the last winter. Okay, if we speak about artillery shells, it's one question, but here we should defend our cities and our infrastructure. Yes, we have some of the supplies here and there, but that is not enough. All of the situation with the Ukrainian support would just force Russia to attack, and we have the forecast for it that Russia would attack with the new forces this summer. The analysis of the Institute for the Study of War shows that. They say that Russia still has the massive production of their weaponry, and with enough manpower they might strike Ukraine this summer. With a new force, and as CA Director Boeing says, we'll see more Avdiivkas in Ukraine, so more towns occupied by Russians. Unfortunately, without the major support, at least at the level of 2023, it is our reality. Russia still has enough fuel and weaponry in their storages to do so. Moreover, many more media sources continue to say that Russia is getting ready for attack on Baltic countries, for example Lithuania. This information was published by the Telegraph before by Bild. Yes, Bild is not a reliable source, but anyways, today I saw those news again. But I think that Putin will not strike NATO countries because his army is mostly concentrated in Ukraine. In the current Russian state, they are unable to fight on 2 major front lines. Yes, Lithuanian army is less capable than Ukrainian one, but they have the potential backup from the other countries. So to follow this scenario to attack towards the Kaliningrad Oblast through Suwalki corridor, Russia needs the ceasefire in Ukraine, so this summer they would try to break through Ukrainian defense, they'll try to ambush Ukrainian army on the east. And later on, maybe they'll do this stuff, because, you know, the Russian propaganda always say that they need to occupy Baltic countries. Just check out the Russia Today or any kind of the other propaganda sources. It is their dream to restore the Soviet Union in the previous borders. What worries me about the case that Russia started to concentrate their forces near to the border with Lithuania. But at the same time, they crucially need those forces fighting in Ukraine, but for some reason they send those to Belarus. According to unconfirmed information that was spread in the media without direct evidence or source mentioned, German intelligence said that this operation is planned for 2026. You know, what can I say? Mostly people didn't believe that Russia would dare to attack Ukraine, so we should be ready for any kind of this scenario with that neighbor. You may say that NATO would use nukes against Russia if they tried to attack Lithuania, but I don't think so. Honestly, I do not think that UK, France or United States of America would nuke Russia for some sort of the other country somewhere. For some sort of the small country with 2 million people population, I think even less. I came to this conclusion seeing the support of Ukraine, which slowed down and almost stopped from some of their previously very loyal allies. Plus, it all depends on the election outcome in the United States. Trump already promised to feed the NATO allies to the Russian dog, encouraging Russia to attack those who do not pay. To whom? To their own budget? The political crisis of our main ally, the United States of America, has never been at that high level. Do you think that Putin wouldn't use it in his favor? No, we should be ready for any kind of this scenario. The most possible variant that Russian forces would advance very fast together with Belarus forces, by the way, at the same time threatening to target Polish cities with nukes in case Poland would interfere to Lithuania to fight against the Russian forces. Russia already supplied their tactical nukes to Belarus. We have the confirmation about it from the United States military. In this scenario, Putin will not be bluffing. He might say that it's not Russia but Belarus which attack Poland with their own nukes. The response of NATO would mean the end of the world as we know it. So from one side of the scale, allies would have just a single country and some sort of the Suwalski corridor. On the other side, the Third World War. That's what makes me think that Putin might do this step, raising the stakes to maximum. Go, no go. Is he crazy enough to do it? I think yes. And we know that NATO allies are performing the training against those kind of the possible Russian scenario. It's a good step. We all understand that Putin will be elected as a president of the Russian Federation once again. The Russian president is being elected for 6 years. Quite a lot. He added 1 year to the term during the last constitutional reform. So Putin will rule Russia until he dies. At least it is his plan. But there could be some of the unforeseen circumstances. Let's see the analysis from Politico, what they say could be during the next term of the Russian dictator. Russia would turn to the democratic state. The possibility of it, they give 5 up to 10%, quite a lot. But my opinion that the democratic Russia is not possible. It has never been a democratic state if you check out their history. There was always dictator ruling. Yes, after the Soviet Union collapse, Russia was some sort of the evolving into democratic state, but still they had the war in Chechnya, and after all, KGB clan took the power in Russia with Putin. Alright, the next one. The collapse of Russia probability between 10 and 15%, quite a lot compared to Russia becoming democratic state. I would bet on that because Russia was near collapse the last year and then Prigozhin went to Moscow. This dictator system looks solid and reliable, but again history shows us many of the cases then dictators collapse in a matter of days or hours. For example, as it happened with dictator Ceausescu in Romania. Plus Russia is known for its bloody revolutions. The activation of the Russian nationalists probability 15 up to 20%. Probably here they mean that patriots, they might take the power in Russia, actually collapsing it, so those two variants are very interconnected. I would say that Prigozhin was one of those Z patriots. The emerge of the new regime by 2030, so the same dictator but with different name, the probability is up to 25%. This variant is possible because there are lots of the ex-KGB agents who are ruling Russia right now together with Putin. And the last variant where Politica gives 50% that nothing would change, Putin would stay in power, same old song, forever young. Well, we understand that this forecast is based on their own thoughts, and no one is able to actually foresee the future events, but they have their own logic and they give 50% that nothing would change in Russia and the rest 50% that something would change dramatically. It gives some of the thoughts to think of. Right now let's go to the front lines update to Avdiivka region. Based on this military map from the Institute for the Study of War, Russia advanced in 3 of the directions. Mostly in Avdiivka region, this is the Avdiivka town, so in Tanenke and near to Pavlivka. Gradually they are coming to this river and those lakes. We're gonna see this picture, I believe, in April. Sorry, in the north it's not Pavlivka, it's Berdichi. Pavlivka is located on the south near to Vuhledar. It's already been occupied by Russians last year. So the biggest problems for Ukraine in this sector are obviously the weak defense lines. The second one, that Russia continued to use their mid-wave tactics. They do not care about the losses, sending their army men again and again. Our defense isn't able to cope with that. Russia has the resource of the manpower plus vehicles, and they can lose many more. The problem number 3, that Russia starts to produce lots of the FPV drones and other types of the drones. One of our commanders in the place says that FPV drones from the Russian side are becoming a great problem for us. Russia sent many of those drones to Krinky. They try to get rid of our infantry, mostly our marines who control that bridgehead. And our guys are unable even to look out from their trenches, which are underground. If they go out, immediately Russia sends the drones to hit them. So Ukrainian military command should do something with it, because as the drone unit commander says, in 4 months this situation will be elsewhere on the front lines. He says that Russia produces FPV drones massively, and in the coming months they will have the drone for each Ukrainian soldier. It's crazy. Let's check out the deep state military map, again Avdiivka direction, and there Russia moved for today. Let's go to the timeline. It was yesterday and it is today. So Berdiche and Orlivka for this source. Let's go more to this place because it's more important. So it was yesterday, it is today. So Russia occupied the vast part of this village. Ukraine just controls a couple of the streets. Plus Russia is very close to reach this river, and I think here it's very thin, so they may try to advance from this sector. Ukraine should take care about this direction. In Berdiche they also advanced to this village. It's not yet fully occupied, but very close to it. The Russian advancement here on the south is not shown on a deep state military map. We're speaking about Novelsk. There is no movement for today. No. We have many of the videos of how Ukraine builds the defense lines. This one in particular was built in Sumy region, which is bordering Russia on the northeast. Here we have the Ukrainian defense minister even inspecting the trenches. I think that the trenches is kind of the usual stuff that should be made even before the full-scale war with Russia, because Russia occupied Crimea in 2014, Russia went to Donetsk Oblast, to Luhansk Oblast. We were actually in a war with Russia for all 8 years, but somehow Ukrainian officials didn't build enough trenches near to the Russian border. Instead, they started to build new modern roads, probably for the Russian tanks to go full power. Sorry guys, but I say it like it is. Our government failed the preparation for this full-scale war with Russia, and now they try to do something because people, society are waiting, are asking the questions: why it happened, why you let the Russians in, why didn't you build all of this stuff before, why didn't you cut the bridges with Crimea, Kherson bridge. So there are lots of the failures performed by Ukrainian government that not many people and not many pro-Ukrainian bloggers as I am talk about, but I say the things as they are. I just hope that now they're really building their robust defense lines able to secure our soldiers. Because for me, honestly, this video looks like PR campaign of our defense minister or something like that. Why he even visited those trenches, I'm out of clue. One more Russian Starlink was kaputted by Ukrainian drone. It was hidden with this stuff, and here is bingo, Starlink went flying to the space. We have already lots of the evidence that Russia is using the Starlink. What they do, they activate those Starlinks in the third countries under the fake identity and then bring Starlinks to Russia. Well, in this case, I may admit that it's very hard for the Starlink company to identify whether the Russian army is using the Starlink or Ukrainian one. The front lines are changing a lot, and our European friends also deliver Starlinks to Ukraine, which are registered on their identity. Still, I think that Starlink should find a solution to block antennas for Russians' use. However, it's very complicated to do and quite risky because Ukrainian Starlinks might be also blocked. So yeah, it's a big issue for us. The first video of Ukrainian M1117 armored vehicle. Those were delivered to Ukrainian army in 2022, but somehow we see the first video with that vehicle. It is very capable but also very expensive, the most expensive vehicle of its class, around $800,000 for one unit. But it has the anti-mine bottom protection, making it quite safe for the infantry inside. The Russian opposition forces are still presented in Kazinka, which is the Russian territory. Today they published the video of the Russian tank which was demolishing the Russian houses on its way in an attempt to get rid of the Russian opposition forces in this sector. Russia is using the same tactics even on their own territory, demolishing everything on their way. So this is the tank and this is the residential building which was hit many times by it, and this one too, it's crazy. Meanwhile, the Russian Volunteer Corps continued to imprison the Russian soldiers. Mostly those are the Russian conscripts who surrendered to Ukraine, to the Russian Volunteer Corps without any fight. The President of France, Emmanuel Macron, gave the interview to Ukrainian journalists. Well, his rhetorics, I would say, changed a little to more softer one, probably after meeting with Chancellor Scholz. He even proposed a ceasefire during the Olympic Games that will take place in France this year. It is a full-scale war like the Second World War. Yes, it's incomparable still for the scale, but very close to it if we speak about the weaponry which is used by both of the sides and the front line's length, so the peace is not possible. It's already full go. But for now, I think we shouldn't be concentrated on what Macron really says, but rather than actions of France, Germany and our other allies. What actually changed that France started to supply the aviation bombs to Ukraine recently? Also, France paused some of the military contracts with Arab countries and now will redirect the weaponry to Ukraine. Those are two awesome steps. But politicians, they talk and talk a lot. Sometimes they say one thing and in a while totally opposite. We shouldn't take their promises as granted. Only real actions might show the full picture. Bulgaria sends all of its Soviet-made BTRs to Ukraine, more than 100 units actually, plus some of the artillery systems too. A very long convoy train was filmed on the way to Ukraine. According to Michael 73, there is the heavy fight now going near to Berdichi, so the final outcome is not yet cleared and Russia continue to lose their vehicles on the ground. As usual, they do. My friends, now don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And also, if you want to support my channel, the job that I do on my channel, you may check out some of the links in the video description just below. Many thanks for my patrons and also the sponsors of my YouTube channel. Guys, you're awesome. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.